And we'll move on to the next play. My favorite title of the evening, Dr. Malperion's Clockwork Assassins by David Hawley.
I should say a brief word of introduction to this. It's about the first quarter of what is intended to be a full-length play. It's a kind of steampunk gothic melodrama. It's not intended to seem realistic at all. In contrast to the two short pieces I've got later, and I'd want some feedback on those, whether they actually are realistic or not. But this came from an idea. Some years ago, I was in the city of York in the UK, and they used to have a museum of automata. And an automaton is like a large clockwork animal, human being, which were very popular in Victorian times. And the ones they had in these museums were incredible things, unbelievable. One could play the piano, some could write in quite a nice cursive hand. You could give it instructions, they could do amazing things. And it struck me, if you took that up one level, when the things could actually walk around, you'd have the basis for a Hammer horror type movie. So that's what I was trying to do here. So Robert is doing the stage direction, so I'm going to get the hell out of it and hand it over to him.
Dr. Malperion's Clockwork Assassins, a Gothic tale by David Hawley. Character: Dr. Malperion, a brilliant but deranged mechanical engineer. Winnie Tweed, a non-swooning Victorian heroine. Fred Tweed, her father, old-fashioned but kindly Victorian father and a bit clueless. Patsy, Winnie's old governess, now living with the family. James, a young man who fails to be a hero. Beryl, a domestic servant with a secret, tends to be a little overfamiliar and saucy when working in the house. Claudine, Dr. Malperion's sinister foreign assistant. Several automata, a policeman, and some passers-by. Setting: the fog-bound streets of an early Victorian city, very similar to London. Much of the action takes place at night. There are cloaks, top hats, and silver-topped canes. Scene 1, the street. The stage is dark except for a single street lamp which casts a circular light in one corner. A couple of passers-by cross, muffled against the fog. Winnie and James enter, walking slowly, arm in arm.
Wasn't it just wonderful, James? I had a lovely night. Some of those performers, artists even, they were so skilled.
Some of it was very clever, I allow, but I would hardly call it art or even decent.
Oh, really, James? What was indecent about it?
That young lady having the knives thrown at her, for one thing. That outfit? Why, you could quite make out the outline of her knees.
Oh, I have knees too, you know.
Winnie, it's not right to speak of such things.
What things?
And that is a blatant attempt to get me to say things about things that isn't supposed to say about. Are you laughing at me?
Only a little. Oh, don't look so hurt.
A police officer strolls past wearing a cape against the fog.
Officer, arrest this young man for excessive gullibility.
No law against that, miss. No hope for any of us if there was. He strolls off again.
Really, Winnie? Accosting strangers in the street? Quite amazed, I really am.
It was only a policeman. It's not as if...
He stops mid-sentence as she notices the cloaked figure of Dr. Malperion, who has limped onto the stage supported by his cane and accompanied by one of his automata, which is moving mechanically, accompanied by a barely audible whirring noise. As they get to the center of the stage, the automaton stops.
Damn and blast it!
He begins to fumble under the coat of the automaton.
James, this is very strange. What is he doing with that person?
Really don't know.
It looks as if the tall one might be unwell. Perhaps we should offer to assist.
James nods and approaches Dr. Malperion.
I say, sir, has your companion been taken ill? Can I help?
You have a screwdriver?
Oh, what?
Thought as much.
I beg your pardon.
No, thank you, sir.
Dr. Malperion looks at James for the first time.
You have a very symmetrical face, young man. Very flexible, too, I imagine.
He's looking at James in a very direct and sinister way. When he comes up to James and takes his arm.
I think we ought to go now, James.
James, with the symmetrical and flexible face.
Sir, if we can render no assistance to you or your companion, then we wish you good night.
The automaton suddenly clicks into life and stands up abruptly, revealing its face for the first time. The face is plain, very white and lifeless looking. Dr. Malperion hurriedly covers it up, and they make their way off stage together as Winnie and James watch them go.
Oh, heavens, James, did you see that man's face?
Was it even a man? It looked more like a corpse.
Let's go, James. I don't like either of those two people, and the night suddenly feels very dark.
They hurry off. Sinister music and darkness. End of scene 1. Scene 2. The parlor of the home of Winnie and her father, Fred. Fred, Winnie, and James are sitting around the tea table. They are having tea and cakes. Patsy is with them.
Oh, really, my dear, you seem to be up a lot last night. I heard you walking around very late.
I found it hard to sleep after the experience that James and I had last night. The most terrible nightmares.
How so?
We chanced upon a strange man whose companion seemed to have been taken ill, but when James offered assistance, we saw the companion. His appearance was something unearthly.
You make it sound as if old Nick himself was stalking the streets.
I'm not so sure that he was not.
Beryl enters.
Good heavens, Winnie, what did you see?
I can hardly describe it. James, please.
We were returning from the theater when we came up on a strange cloaked man with a companion whose face was hidden. The old gentleman was walking with a cane. The other man was moving slowly and awkwardly. There was something strange about them. Winnie took my hand, and the first thing I thought of was...
Crumpet?
Offering a plate.
Oh, no, thank you. Where was I?
Holding my hand.
Yes, well, I offered to assist the chap, but he declined, though his companion was immobile.
Oh, very odd.
Tea, sir?
Tea be damned. Give us a brandy.
No, sir. It's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
She's right, you know, Mr. Tweed. You should listen to Dr. Rawlings' advice. He said you're only allowed brandy after your dinner, and he also said you're only allowed 1 dinner a day.
Yes, cleverer than he looks, that Rawlings. Remind me to dismiss him and find a stupider doctor. Take my advice, James boy. Never live in a house full of women. They just gang up on you and keep you from the pleasures in life. I barely manage to get away shooting these days.
I should think not, after you shot Anastafer last year.
What sort of bird is a nestifer?
Charlie and Nestifer, the gamekeeper's assistant.
Oh, dear. Was he badly hurt? Where was he shot?
Oh, in the Chinderbuffs.
I beg your pardon?
Chunderbluff's Grouse Moor.
Best in Yorkshire.
Oh, quiet. I want to hear what happened last night.
Oh, yes. The strange man declined our assistance, and he seemed to massage the other one's chest, and he revived.
But then he stood up suddenly, and when I saw his face, it was so white that I just flung my arms around James.
Tart?
Offering the plate with a tart on it.
Beryl,
We got fairy cakes, if you prefer.
Harold, go away, you old coot. We can help ourselves to whatever we want.
Ah, the spirit of the Empire speaks.
Just bring some more tea, would you?
Not brandy, sir.
Get out, you silly cow.
Beryl flounces out with the teapot.
Honestly, Papa, I don't know why you keep her on. She's barely polite.
Because she's damned efficient. Never seen anything like it. True, nurse?
She certainly keeps things in order, and she's the only one who stands up to cook. Well, I remember when I had just become your governess, we had that funny business with the Scotch woodcock, and she thought it was something indecent.
Oh, pipe down, you old fossil. I want to hear this strangeness, the stranger that James and Winnie saw.
Beryl has re-entered with a teapot.
Ah, yes, the Sanket gentleman. When he arose, I saw his face. It was white and rather expressionless.
Like a dead person, yet at the same time strangely familiar.
Oh, really? How much had you been drinking?
It was certainly strange and not altogether wholesome. And funnily enough, the fellow with the cane remarked on my face. He said I had a good face. What do you think of that?
I think you should take it seriously.
They all turn round to look at her.
Oh, that is, it's not my place to say, sir, to be sure, but there's some strange rumours going round the servants' hall about odd men who keep their faces covered about going about at night. Cook says that the postman says...
Yes, Beryl. Go starch the antimacassar or something.
I will, sir, but you just look out, Mr. James.
Beryl exits.
Well, what do you make of that?
Oh, servants' hall talk. There's all sorts of Chinese whispers get passed on from one house to another. You'd think you'd be murdered in your bed by Spring-Heeled Jack at any moment, according to some of those silly girls. And as for that boot boy...
Maybe, but Beryl doesn't really seem the type for idle fancies.
Well, then, what does it all mean, James, my boy? What does it all mean?
Frankly, sir, I haven't the faintest idea.
End of scene 2. Scene 3. Dr. Malperion's laboratory, or laboratory if you prefer. The lab is a gloomy space. Human life-sized automata are arranged here and there, some standing, some sitting, in various states of repair. At least one has no head. The automaton that Dr. Malperion used in scene 1 is present but immobile. Some of the automata are holding musical instruments. Most of them have plain white faces, masks, which give them blank but slightly sad expressions. The first automaton is slightly different. It has a realistic human face, but pale. There are benches and some tools and lights. The overall atmosphere is one of sinister steampunk. There is a shaft which comes out from one of the walls. Dr. Malperion is sitting at a workbench with a clockwork mechanism in his hand. Claudine is standing next to him. They are looking at the mechanism together. Dr. Malperion suddenly holds up a large component and shows it to Claudine.
There! What do you see, Claudine?
A broken drive spring, Doctor.
And what does that tell us?
That we overwound it?
Ah, Claudine, you're an engineer. Think like an engineer.
Huh. I would be if those men at the university had...
Ah, Claudine, I wound that spring to exactly the amount of tension needed for 2 hours of working. Those are my operational requirements. Now, I ask you again, what does that tell us?
That the specifications for the main spring are inadequate.
Better. But how to solve it?
That is difficult. There's no extra space for a larger spring unless we increase the size of the chest cavity.
She taps the automaton on the chest, which makes a hollow sound.
No. This is as large as we dare. They must look like normal human beings and not stand out.
We could make them fat, and then we could mount the spring horizontally and...
Obese robots? Oh dear, Claudine, I expect better of you than that.
How much energy needs to be stored?
Here.
He passes her a few sheets of paper. She looks at them and begins to do a few calculations with a pencil.
2 hours of operation at 24 The automata weighed 260 pounds. That's 400. What's the discharge rate of the spring?
Oh, come on now! It's a second order integral between the minimum and maximum tension levels on the spring, decreasing as the reciprocal of the exponential as it discharges. You could teach a goat to work it out.
But what is the maximum tension on the spring?
That is what we need to know. Find the total energy and work it backwards.
Dr. Malperion gets up and mutters for a moment while Claudine calculates.
So, indeed, here is our answer. 48 foot-pounds. The rating of our spring steel is 15. No wonder it broke. We need a spring 3 times as big.
And if we have no room for a larger spring?
Well, a stronger spring of the same size then.
Precisely.
But there is no steel in the world that is strong enough to take those levels of tension.
So don't use steel. Use something else.
What?
Invent something.
What? Do I?
Claudine, do you know why I engaged you as my assistant?
I'm an engineer, or at least I would be if...
Oh, very well aware of your history at Cambridge and the old relics that govern the course.
My results were the best that had been seen in 15 years.
But you made the mistake of being a woman and a foreigner. And the Empire cannot tolerate such things. So, no degree? However, did you not go unnoticed? Yes. You are a moderately intelligent young woman, my dear, but more important to me, you have hate and determination in your heart. Is it not true?
Do not call me my dear, as if I were some simpering maid making eyes at the footman. I am a mechanical engineer with no equal. I will prove my ability and make those mastodons at Peter's College eat their words. Yes, I hate them, and I will do things in engineering that they have never dreamt of. Oh, yes, they are going to be looking very stupid.
And what are you going to do in engineering? Invent a drive spring half that size.
He holds it up.
That can work at 40 foot-pounds.
Yes.
How?
Well, the cross section doesn't have to be flat.
What? Make it thicker in the middle and then you wouldn't be able to coil it.
Thinner. The center section doesn't take much tension, so we can make it thinner there and longer. We could also make the whole machine lighter by using a thinner casing, then we'd need less energy.
The casing needs to be that heavy gauge to support the weight.
Only in the legs. The body, arms, and head can be thinner material. We might reduce the weight by, say, 15%.
Good, good. You have something resembling a brain after all. There's the workshop, Madam Engineer. See what you can come up with.
What about you?
I need to work on making the automata more lifelike. If it is to be suspected that they are anything other than human beings, the project will fail. Everything can be covered except the face. Arms, legs, bodies, hands even, but not the face. The man who walks the street with his face covered attracts suspicion and attention, and that is precisely what we must avoid.
Why men? Women can walk in public too, and women can also be assassins. It is acceptable for women to veil their faces, no?
Oh, Claudine, you do stand up for your sex, but it won't do. A dozen veiled women in the street together, without men? Society may be coming to a low ebb, but such a gathering would be noticed immediately. No. The army of automata must be men, ordinary, nondescript men with good human faces, like 16 here.
He points at the realistic-looking automaton.
That sad suicide lives on, thanks to 16 here, even if he still doesn't smile.
He is too pale. Makeup, theatrical makeup is needed. Do you think we can get 11 more human faces?
It is a remarkable thing, the human face. So much can be expressed without words. Anger, grief, ecstasy, sadness, exhilaration, all through using those 57 muscles, those eyes, those teeth. It is a remarkable thing, do you not agree?
Can you get enough?
Yes, but they need to be good faces. Like the one I saw last night. That was perfect. Just what I need. I'll get that face.
Dr. Malperion, what about the tracking device?
Yeah, what about it? It will be activated by any scent I choose.
I don't believe it will work.
You doubt my ability? How dare you question my work?
I do. The whole project stands or falls on your scent-activated homing device. If it fails, we fail.
It works. Trust me.
I do not trust you. Show me.
You distrust me? Very well. Here it is.
He picks a small device from a shelf.
O ye of little faith. The right smell will activate the device and trigger the automaton into action.
Oh, yeah?
You think it won't work. You doubt that the system will function. Well, I will show you, Miss Claudine.
He picks up a jar, takes the lid off, and hands it to her.
Smell.
Oh, what is that?
It is the smell of putrefying shrimps. A smell this device has been chemically instructed to recognize.
He begins to dash about, holding the jar to the faces of the automata, reaching under their covers to activate them.
Come to life, my darlings! Come to life!
The automata start to move. Dr. Malperion gives various manic cries of encouragement. They begin to move around. Those with musical instruments begin to play. The music is of bad quality, but loud, played by the band with blank faces. Claudine backs away in alarm.
Don't worry, my darling engineer. The music can't hurt. That comes later. Did you doubt me? See now. Enjoy the music and behold the genius of Dr. Malperion.
He continues to laugh demonically until the music suddenly ends in a blackout. End of scene 3. Scene 4. The drawing room of the Tweed house. Fred, Patsy, and Winnie are sitting on chairs. Winnie is sewing. Her father is reading the paper.
When's that fiancé of yours coming then?
Presently.
Another damned outrage.
Oh, come, father. According to you, wearing a soft-collared shirt to dinner is an outrage.
And so it is. There are standards to be maintained. The maintenance of standards is what built us an empire. You mark my words.
Getting up, Winnie gets up and kisses him affectionately.
Oh, Papa, you say such silly things sometimes. Why do we need to dress for dinner at all? I'm sure that in the far-flung corners of the empire, they have no need to bother with such things.
What? Let me tell you, miss, that I was in Burma with Deadeye Carstairs in 83 when we were being carried across a crocodile-infested river by a group of native bearers. And Carstairs noticed that it was 7 o'clock in the evening. So what do you think we did?
Beryl enters.
I haven't the slightest idea.
We had to go back to the far bank and dress for dinner, of course.
Papa, you're teasing me.
Well, not a bit. Standards to keep up. Excuse me. All there was to eat was plantains and python steaks, but we ate them in black jackets and white ties like reputable Englishmen. and the bearers respected us for it.
Of course they did, sir.
What do you want, you bovine?
Winnie picks up the paper and looks at it.
Cook says we're expecting Mr. James for dinner, sir. Only she won't make the fish on account of his not liking it.
James enters.
Are you an ichthyophobe, James?
I stay out of politics, sir.
Quite right, quite right.
Heaven help us.
My God.
What is it, my dear?
James, look at this in the newspaper.
Yes, what is it?
Winnie
Look,
holds
James.
up the paper.
Look, James, look.
James does so and begins to read.
George Peterson, a medical student of great promise, has been missing since Tuesday last. Described by his tutors as a most studious and gifted, if melancholy, student. His disappearance has aroused the greatest curiosity and dismay. After he left the university on Tuesday evening, nothing has been seen or heard of him since. I'm sure that is a tragedy for his family and friends, Winnie, but why do you...
Look at the picture, James, the picture.
Let's see, what?
James, don't you remember? Friday night? The mysterious pale man. That was him.
Was it?
Yes, of course it was.
Oh, I don't think...
It was.
They stand for a few seconds looking at the paper.
Well, I think it's time we all had a nice cup of tea and stopped worrying about such things.
Good God, after 20 years, she's finally spoken a word of sense. Get us some tea, what's your name?
That's him, miss. You're sure?
Absolutely.
Beryl, drag your blighted petticoats downstairs if you want to gossip, but fetch us some tea first.
Sir.
She leaves abruptly.
Well, what do you make of that?
This is not good.
Too right. She didn't even ask about scones.
End of scene 4. Scene 5. The dark street again. Dr. Malperion and Claudine appear from stage left. They are followed by the same automaton as previously, walking slightly mechanically. They cross to stage right in silence and stop at the extreme edge.
So, an improvement, is it not?
Yes, and improvement.
So, a mere woman has improved on the invention of the great Dr. Malperion. Is that not what you were thinking?
Oh, Claudine, I would never have described you as a mere woman. A woman, yes, but a mere woman? No. That is where I see clearly and the others blunder blindly.
What do you mean?
I see your talent, Claudine. I see your scintillating engineer's intellect. Others see a woman. I see the fulminating and seething passion of a person who must prove herself before the court of man. Yes, I mean man. For what do women's opinions count for in this society? Oh, you may have opinions on buttons and bows and bonnets in polite society, my dear, and despite your ability to calculate the Young's modulus of every grain of Sheffield steel to 6 decimal places, it will be assumed you are unfamiliar with the operation of a screwdriver, and your only experience of steel will be in the use of hat pins.
You think I hate men.
I know it.
And you too, in your own way, underestimate me.
You think so?
Yes. You know I will not be bundled under layers of crinoline and whalebone. No, sir. Indeed, I am not to be subject to the opinions of haberdashers. But you underestimate me when you catalog me simply as an engineer.
Elaborate.
Engineers are passionate about engineering. Women are passionate about the things women are passionate about. Just because I can improve on your mechanisms and devise better ones does not mean that I am not of the female sex, and you, sir, will not shame me for it.
I wouldn't dream of it. But do you have the determination to put things in action?
Claudine glares at him. Just then a gentleman in a top hat walks by briefly, looks at them and passes on. As he passes, Claudine produces a small rubber bulb and squirts something onto the man's coat. Unnoticed by him, he strolls off stage.
I have determination, doctor, sir, but I do dream, and I have a young woman's energy and drive, and I am fully aware that you are directing it. Let us not pretend otherwise. For now, our motives and ambitions coincide, so let us proceed.
Bravo, Claudine. We understand each other perfectly.
Claudine produces a jar, opens the lid, and waves it through the air.
Aniseed is so much better than rotting shrimps. Do you not agree?
She hands the jar to Dr. Malperion, who holds it to the face of the automaton. He then reaches under its coat and clicks something. The machine is galvanized into action and walks quickly off stage in the same direction as the gentleman. Hey, what do you mean by this, sir? Stand back! Stand back, I say!
Well done, Claudine. Our first test is successful in more ways than one.
End of scene 5 and this reading.
Great entertainment. Thank you, Dave. All right, what grabbed your attention with this one?
Well, the doctor killed, first of all.
Yeah,
He
good.
killed. That's it.
Literally.
Well done. I really enjoyed this, David. I really did. This is really, really well written, and it's a good plot, and things happen in it, and I want to know what happens next. I really, truly enjoyed listening to everybody else and following along far more than my throat did being in it.
Very atmospheric. And I really love that. And it has some of the atmosphere, I feel, of like a multi-part series. You know, I almost want to see this as a Netflix series, which this world could be more fully developed, you know, so.
I
like the fact that there were certain stereotyped characters like the professor, the doctor, and the some of the servants, and you know, and that's kind of a contrast to the characters who have more real personalities, like James and his girlfriend, and so his fiancée. So it's an interesting contrast between the stereotyped characters and the more human characters.
Yeah, I thought that was close.
I really liked the assistant, Claudine. You don't run into that too often. I really liked that character. She was also a good counterpoint to Malperion.
I just wanted to I just wanted to say that I want to find out what happens next, and some people are having too much fun.
One person in particular,
Yeah,
I think, Norman, but
Making me jealous when a play when reading or I see actors doing stuff like that, it makes me want to be in part of the story.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. You know, all the characters had their little foibles, and they're all quite different. And you know, it was sort of hokey, if you know what I mean, David, in not an offensive way. But I really liked it. I just want to, you know, like somebody said, I just want to see what happens next. It's like da-dun, da-da, you know. Yeah.
I want to know if Carol's character gets revenge on Fred at the end for all of, you know, how he puts her down, or is she the one that, you know, solves the plot eventually?
One of my writing mentors told me that if actors are having an obvious great time and are fully engaged, you're watching a quality written play. And it was obvious the actors were having a blast with this.
Well, thanks, Phil. I mean, this is obviously a bit of lightweight stuff. As I said, it's not meant to be realistic. So I guess since most people have been generally positive, I guess I should write the rest of it.
Write me more.
and the way the plot is going, I probably telegraphed it, but Dr. Malperion is going to kidnap James because he wants his face to put on one of his clockwork robots. And he's going to have to be rescued by Winnie. And Beryl turns out to be a government agent and a bit of an assassin herself. Yeah, that's the way the plot's generally going. So but it goes through a number of twists and turns as well. So and the automatic robots. I just like the idea of robots worked by Clockwork on stage. But a problem I know I'm going to have with this is because it has a bunch of sets and it needs a very large cast. So, but we'll see how it goes.
Hey, David, I mean, these are very minor things. Just a couple of things stuck out, and as I read it and heard it, was I found, whether it's a modern sensibility, but I found the sort of Fred's abuse of Beryl a bit too strong. Cow, and I don't know even they would have called servants that without someone objecting to it. But that made us more sensible. And I've used it since, of course, and you may not be bothered about anachronisms, but robot was not a word they would have used in those days. It hadn't been invented.
No, it hadn't. Yeah, I was thinking
the Capek brothers hadn't written until that.
Right, not till 1923.
Yeah, because the robot comes from Czech, doesn't it? It's,
Yeah, well, I'm from Russian.
Yeah, I should continue to say automaton. Yeah, good, fair point. Yeah.
Sorry, they're pretty minor, but yeah, no, I just thought that Fred became unpleasant I thought he became unpleasant by saying cow and bovine and things like that. I think some of the other ways you express it with other characters about you keep your crinoline in order, whatever it was,
right,
I thought were funnier as well because they were a bit cleverer and less vulgar, I think. But
right,
that was just maybe a personal thing.
Okay.
And yet, if Beryl's character were to, be the one that proves herself to be smarter than Fred, that would kind of be her comeback.
Well, I think you can still insult her. It was just the
right. Yeah.
It wasn't the insult. It wasn't the fact that he was putting him down, because he did that several characters. I think it was just the particular terms that I think just struck me as making the character less sympathetic than I think he was intended to be.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks very much to the actors, especially Brad. I hope you didn't have a hernia or anything while you were doing that.
I just say something. I was really engaged. I was really engaged with the David, and the characters are really good. Brad, you are wild. That's what I have to say. We really got into that, and Brad, and I mean, you all were really good. But I would like, because as you were saying about how many characters it was and how many the sets, I think this will work as a mini series. Do episode by episode to keep people coming back for more and more and more. And like Rita said, like a Netflix series, make it a series. I would like to see it as a series and not just a full-length play, because it's after 30 minutes, then I want oh my God, I want to see what's happening next week or tomorrow on there to break it down. Maybe because you have so many characters, to break down the sets and to break down the characters and everything, to make it, and people probably will be more engaged to even want to keep watching it whenever it comes on, every week or twice a week on Netflix or Amazon or wherever you want to put it. Or even just that's what my whole thought when I was listening to it. I'm like, oh, okay. And every time Act 1 was over, I'm thinking that should be the end of it for this day. And then the next day we'll have another episode. That's just gonna be my comment on that for right now. Great job, David and actors.
Thanks.